The early light of dawn crept through the thin curtains of a modest apartment in a quiet suburb of Oklahoma. As the clock marked the arrival of another ordinary day, I awoke to the soft sounds of a bustling household. Outside my window, the stillness of the neighborhood offered a sense of calm that had become as familiar as the creak of the wooden floorboards. Every morning, I followed the same ritual, yet today something stirred within me, a quiet murmur of longing that I could not quite place. I lay for a moment, listening to the gentle hum of early morning preparations. In the adjacent kitchen, Brian, my devoted husband, was already busy at work. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the sizzle of eggs on the stove filled the space with warmth and comfort. Brian's routine gestures, measuring the coffee grounds, flipping a pancake with precision, reminded me of the stability we had built together over the years. However, as I sat there wrapped in the soft embrace of the morning light, I felt an inexplicable restlessness. It was as if a subtle current of change was beginning to flow beneath the surface of my everyday life. While preparing for work, I paused in the small, well-lit bathroom. Standing before the mirror, I studied the reflection of a woman I had once known well, a woman filled with dreams and ambition. The lines on my face and the weariness in my eyes told a story of routine and sacrifice. I remembered days when I felt alive with possibilities, when every moment was an invitation to explore a world that lay just beyond the horizon of my comfort zone. Now, in this quiet suburban existence, the mirror revealed a version of myself that seemed caught in the web of predictability. There was a growing whisper inside me urging that perhaps the time had come to seek something beyond the familiar. I dressed in the simple outfit that had become my uniform, a soft blouse paired with a practical skirt, each piece chosen with the care of routine rather than the excitement of experimentation. Even as I fastened the button on my cardigan, I sensed that something was shifting, a small yet undeniable spark that hinted at the possibility of transformation. The morning was no longer just a prelude to another day of work and responsibilities. It had become a silent invitation to rediscover the parts of myself that had lain dormant. Stepping into the hallway, I felt the weight of years and the gentle pull of dreams I had long since buried. The sound of Brian's cheerful humming as he prepared the final touches on breakfast echoed through the apartment, a reminder of the life we had nurtured together. Yet, in the quiet recesses of my mind, the call for change was growing louder, promising new beginnings and a journey back to the person I once was, a person who had learned to dream without reservation. The routine of the day carried me into the familiar corridors of my office, where each step resonated with the steady cadence of a life long lived in repetition. I settled into my desk with the usual mix of resignation and resignation to duty when an unexpected ring shattered the monotony. The phone's insistent tone startled me, as if summoning memories from a distant time, distant enough to feel almost unreal. I hesitated before answering, feeling the weight of the moment as I reached out and pressed the receiver to my ear. A voice, warm yet tinged with a hint of wistfulness, greeted me. It was Logan, someone whose name I had tucked away in the recesses of memory. His tone was both familiar and refreshingly sincere, a reminder of days when life brimmed with daring possibilities. "Hello," he said, his voice carrying an echo of the past that stirred something deep within me. I could hardly believe that after all these years, a call from him would bridge the gap between who I was and who I had become. His words were simple at first, inquiring about my well-being, but as we spoke, a cascade of recollections flowed back. The conversation rekindled long-dormant emotions, the ones that once made my heart race with unspoken dreams and uncharted journeys. Throughout the call, every word from Logan seemed carefully chosen, weaving a tapestry of shared memories and unspoken hopes. He recalled our college days when we had imagined lives filled with adventure and meaningful pursuits. His voice was imbued with both regret and optimism. Regret for the paths not taken, and optimism for the endless possibilities that lay ahead. I found myself reflecting on the stark contrast between his vibrant recollections and my own measured existence. The familiarity of his laughter, the gentle reassurance in his tone, and even the subtle cadence of his speech evoked an overwhelming nostalgia that made the present seem both insufficient and constricting. In that moment, the office around me faded into a quiet backdrop as I allowed myself to be transported back to a time when dreams were not yet weighed down by routine and expectation. Logan's call was not just a fleeting interruption, it was a portal back to a period when every decision brimmed with promise. I sensed that the universe had orchestrated this contact, placing it precisely at the moment when I needed a reminder of the person I used to be. His questions were probing yet kind, encouraging me to revisit the aspirations I had long neglected. After hanging up, I sat quietly, the phone still warm in my hand. My mind was alight with a tumult of thoughts, each one a reflection of both possibility and regret. I realized that this call was more than an echo from the past. It was a wake-up call that challenged me to reconsider the life I had settled into. The familiar surroundings of the office, the steady hum of colleagues working in synchrony, and the predictable rhythm of daily tasks suddenly appeared as mere shadows of what could be. In that quiet interlude, I made a silent promise to myself. I would not let the echoes of my past be lost to the passage of time. Logan's voice had stirred something that could no longer be ignored, a whisper of dreams waiting patiently for their moment to reemerge. The invitation to join a business lunch in downtown Los Angeles came unexpectedly, a blend of professional obligation and a hint of serendipity. I had arrived at the sleek, modern venue with a mix of anticipation and quiet curiosity, aware that today's meeting might diverge from the ordinary path I had grown accustomed to. The space was bright, with expansive windows that offered a panoramic view of the city's bustling streets below, an ever-changing tapestry of ambitions and dreams in motion. As I settled at a polished table near the window, I scanned the room, noticing a dynamic array of professionals engaged in their own conversations. Yet amidst the modern decor and the hum of purposeful chatter, my thoughts quickly found their way back to the past. The voice of Logan, whose unexpected call had stirred something long dormant within me. There he was, seated across from me, his presence both familiar and intriguingly new. Dressed in a tailored suit that accentuated his assured demeanor, Logan greeted me with a warm smile that hinted at unspoken memories and future possibilities. Our conversation began with the customary pleasantries, each of us sharing a brief update on our professional lives. But as the meal progressed, so did the depth of our dialogue. Logan's questions transcended the surface-level details of daily work, reaching instead for the core of my experiences and aspirations. With each shared anecdote, I sensed that his interest was genuine, a rare quality in the corporate world where interactions often felt rehearsed and transactional. His tone was sincere, his gaze attentive, as he encouraged me to speak freely about both the challenges and the quiet victories that had marked my years. Between courses, we exchanged stories that were steeped in both humor and a subtle sadness. Tales of missed opportunities, cherished moments, and the unexpected detours that life often presented. The discussion shifted effortlessly from professional strategies to personal dreams. Logan recounted his own journey with a candor that resonated deeply, touching on the moments when he dared to step outside the well-worn paths in search of something more meaningful. His narrative was interlaced with insights that made me reflect on the choices I had made and the potential that still lay dormant within me. As the afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the city, the conversation assumed the quality of a revelation, a delicate balance between rediscovering lost ambitions and embracing the practicality of our present realities. I found myself captivated by Logan's ability to weave practicality with a quiet optimism that rekindled long-forgotten dreams. His confidence was not brash, but rather, it emerged as a steady assurance that life held many layers yet to be explored. In that moment, the business lunch transformed into a symbolic meeting of minds and hearts, a confluence of past aspirations and the promise of new directions. By the time we concluded our meal, the restaurant's ambiance had subtly shifted from the formal to the reflective. We parted with a respectful nod and a sense of having shared something rare, a fleeting yet profound glimpse into a future that beckoned with possibilities. As I stepped back into the vibrant pulse of downtown Los Angeles, I carried with me the impression that this encounter was more than a mere lunch meeting. It was a quiet turning point, a reminder that even amidst the structure of everyday responsibilities, life had a way of offering unexpected moments of clarity and the courage to dream anew. After a day marked by unexpected reconnections and quietly unfolding memories, I found myself drawn to the solace of art. The modern art gallery in downtown Los Angeles beckoned as a haven from the relentless pace of everyday life. Stepping through its minimalist entrance, I was immediately enveloped by an atmosphere where color and form whispered secrets of creativity and possibility. The gallery's interior was a blend of understated elegance and vibrant experimentation. Soft ambient lighting accentuated each piece, allowing abstract canvases and sculptural installations to tell their own stories. I wandered slowly through the spacious hall, letting the interplay of shadows and hues guide my thoughts. Every artwork seemed to speak of transformation and renewal, a fitting echo to the stirring inside me. Amid the quiet murmur of fellow art enthusiasts, I sought refuge in the deliberate pace of contemplation, each step a quiet defiance of the relentless routine that had come to define my daily existence. It was in this creative sanctuary that I encountered Logan once again. He stood near an installation that juxtaposed stark industrial elements with bursts of organic form, his gaze intent and reflective. Our eyes met, and in that silent exchange, I recognized the familiar spark of curiosity that had drawn me to him earlier that day. Logan approached with a measured smile, and our conversation began in the gentle language of art and observation. He spoke of the artist's ability to disrupt the conventional, to present a vision that challenges the established order. His insights were both articulate and thoughtful, weaving his personal experiences into a broader commentary on life and transformation. As we moved from one exhibit to another, our dialogue deepened, evolving into an exploration of dreams and the quiet courage it takes to seek change. We discussed how art, much like life, thrives on the tension between comfort and the unknown, a balance that often demands letting go of what is familiar. Logan recounted moments when his own path had been irrevocably altered by a single, daring decision, while I confessed my growing desire to break free from the predictable cadence of my existence. The gallery, with its ever-shifting displays of light and color, served as the perfect backdrop for these revelations, each painting and sculpture resonating with the possibility of rebirth. In that hushed, reflective space, every word and gesture felt charged with meaning. The gallery's gentle ambiance softened the edges of reality, allowing us to momentarily glimpse a world where change was not a threat, but an invitation, a call to rediscover passions long forgotten. As we lingered near a particularly evocative piece that fused stark geometry with fluid lines, the air between us seemed to hold the promise of new beginnings. In the convergence of art and honest conversation, I sensed that this evening was more than just an escape. It was a quiet affirmation that the journey toward rediscovering oneself is as intricate and beautiful as the works that surrounded us. Over the next few days, a quiet transformation began to take shape within me, a subtle yet relentless interplay of hidden feelings and emerging doubts. Each morning, as the familiar routine unfolded around me, I found my thoughts wandering to moments of unexpected clarity that had been seeded during my encounters with Logan. At work, amid the steady hum of routine tasks and the gentle clatter of keyboards, I sensed a growing restlessness that defied the orderly cadence of my life. It was as if the call from the past had awakened a dormant part of me, one that questioned the value of predictability and yearned for a life infused with the vibrancy of dreams long forgotten. During the quiet hours of the evening, when the world outside settled into a reflective calm, I would retreat into the solitude of my thoughts. In these moments, I grappled with a cascade of conflicting emotions, a mixture of longing, guilt, and a burgeoning awareness of my own lost identity. The comfortable routines that once offered a sense of security now felt like a gilded cage, each tick of the clock echoing the life I had built, yet never truly lived. I began to question whether my days were spent merely fulfilling expectations rather than pursuing the passions that had once defined me. The internal dialogue was both relentless and piercing. I recalled the countless mornings spent preparing for work with a sense of resignation, the reflection in the mirror that revealed traces of a woman who had gradually faded away under the weight of monotony. At times, the ache of this realization was overwhelming, a persistent reminder that I had allowed years of complacency to dull the edges of my true self. In quiet moments of introspection, I wondered how I had come to accept the ordinary as my destiny, even as the memory of who I could be stirred with each recollection of a vibrant past. In the midst of this internal struggle, the image of Logan, his confident smile, the sincerity in his voice, and the ease with which he bridged the gap between our past and the present, remained a focal point. His presence had reawakened a hope that perhaps I was capable of more than what my current life allowed. Yet, with each hopeful thought came an equally potent fear: the fear of the unknown, of breaking free from the familiar, and of the consequences that might follow. I wrestled with the notion that my feelings were less about a newfound infatuation and more a profound yearning for an identity I had long neglected. As days turned into nights, this internal conflict became an almost tangible companion, present during quiet dinners at home, during solitary walks in the neighborhood park, and in the moments just before sleep when the world grew hushed. The dialogue between past dreams and present obligations was unyielding, urging me to confront the stark truth that I had been living in the shadow of a once bright promise. The deep questions of self-worth and fulfillment now pressed upon me with a quiet insistence that I could no longer ignore. In the silent battles fought in the recesses of my mind, I sensed that the path ahead, while fraught with uncertainty, might ultimately lead to the rediscovery of a life truly lived. One crisp evening, as the sky deepened into a gentle twilight, I found myself drawn to a quaint cafe tucked away on a lively corner of the city. The establishment, with its warm glow and softly playing melodies, offered an inviting retreat from the rigidity of everyday obligations. I arrived a few minutes before my meeting, savoring the quiet moments of anticipation that filled the space between my heart and the promise of a new encounter. Inside, the cafe was a haven of understated charm, a collection of mismatched vintage chairs, wooden tables polished by countless conversations, and a subtle aroma of freshly baked pastries mingling with roasted coffee. The atmosphere was relaxed yet vibrant, a fitting reflection of the myriad lives unfolding around me. I chose a secluded table near a window where I could watch the interplay of fading sunlight and the city's emerging nocturne. As I sipped my warm cup of herbal tea, I allowed my thoughts to wander to the unexpected yet compelling presence that had begun to reshape my days. Soon enough, Logan entered the cafe. His arrival was unceremonious yet profound, a quiet acknowledgement that some connections defy time and distance. He greeted me with a friendly nod and an easy smile that spoke of both familiarity and genuine interest. We settled into a conversation that was light at first, filled with the simple pleasures of recounting recent experiences. Yet, as minutes turned into an hour, our discussion delved into deeper territories, reminiscing about shared moments from years past and exploring the subtle shifts that had come to define our current lives. The conversation unfolded naturally, as if it were a long-forgotten melody being played once more. Logan's words were measured and thoughtful, revealing glimpses of his own reflections on change and growth. I found myself opening up about the quiet struggles of routine and the unspoken yearning for a life unconfined by predictability. In this cozy space, every sentence carried the weight of unexpressed dreams and the tender courage required to confront one's inner desires. Our exchange was marked by moments of reflective silence as well, each pause a silent affirmation of the bond we were rekindling. The ambient hum of other patrons and the soft clink of cutlery served as a gentle backdrop, framing our conversation in a cocoon of introspection. Here, in the simplicity of a friendly meeting, I recognized the potential for transformation. The cafe, with its subtle warmth and genuine simplicity, became a quiet stage for revelations, a place where the boundaries between past comfort and future possibilities began to blur. As the evening wore on, I sensed that this meeting was more than a casual encounter. It was a deliberate step toward reclaiming parts of myself that had been obscured by the familiarity of routine. In the soft glow of the cafe's lights, our dialogue hinted at the possibility of rediscovering a forgotten vitality, a life waiting patiently to be lived with authenticity and renewed passion. The day faded into a serene evening as I wandered along the riverbank, the city's lights beginning to shimmer on the water's surface. The gentle murmur of the river provided a calming soundtrack to my thoughts, which were now filled with a mixture of cautious hope and reflective wonder. I had arranged to meet Logan once more, this time away from the familiar buzz of the cafe and the structured pulse of the office. The cool air was refreshing, carrying with it a hint of evening dew and the promise of new beginnings. Our footsteps echoed softly on the pavement as we strolled side by side along the water's edge. The conversation flowed easily between us, interspersed with comfortable silences that spoke of mutual understanding. With every step, the memories of our past mingled with the excitement of rediscovering ourselves. Logan's presence was both reassuring and quietly invigorating, reminding me that some connections are capable of bridging the gap between who we were and who we might yet become. As twilight deepened, the world around us seemed to slow down. The soft glow of street lamps and the reflection of a starlit sky on the rippling water created an atmosphere of quiet enchantment. We found ourselves drawn to a secluded spot beneath a large, ancient tree, its sprawling branches sheltering us from the cool night. There, with the natural soundscape of the river and the distant hum of the city, our conversation grew more introspective. We spoke of dreams that had been set aside and of the courage it would take to pursue the unknown. In that delicate pause between words, something unspoken passed between us, a silent invitation that acknowledged the significance of the moment. The coolness of the evening air mingled with the warmth of a connection that neither of us had anticipated, but both recognized as profound. Logan's eyes, reflecting both the calm of the night and a spark of something new, met mine with an unguarded sincerity. In that charged silence, we moved closer, our expressions conveying the unvoiced acknowledgement of our shared journey towards rediscovery. Then, in a moment that felt as natural as the shifting breeze, our lips met in a gentle kiss. It was not a kiss of hurried passion, but one that spoke of quiet understanding and the delicate balancing act between holding on and letting go. The kiss was a soft affirmation, a fleeting, tender seal upon a promise to embrace what the future might hold. As we slowly parted, the cool night wrapped around us, and I realized that this simple, heartfelt act had altered the course of my internal dialogue. It was as if, in that brief contact, I had reawakened a part of myself that had been waiting patiently in the shadows, ready to step into the light of a new tomorrow. After that transformative moment by the river, I found myself stepping back into the life I had once known. A life defined by quiet routines and familiar rhythms. The transition from the cool embrace of the evening air to the warm, subdued light of home felt surreal. As I crossed the threshold of our modest apartment, the lingering echoes of that gentle kiss played quietly in my mind, mingling with the everyday sounds of domestic life. Inside, everything remained as it had always been. Brian was at the kitchen counter, diligently preparing dinner with the care that had become second nature over the years. The clatter of utensils and the soft hum of the old radio formed a backdrop to our shared routine. His presence, steady and reassuring, had always been my anchor. Yet as I watched him move about the kitchen with practiced ease, a dissonance stirred within me. The very familiarity of our life now bore the weight of unspoken questions and a yearning for the authenticity I had tasted moments before. I joined him in the kitchen, offering a quiet smile that concealed the tumult of emotions inside. Brian's gentle nod and the familiar warmth in his eyes were a comfort, but they could not entirely quiet the stirring inside me. A reminder that beneath the surface of our carefully structured life lay a collection of forgotten dreams and unexplored desires. As we worked together in silence, preparing a meal that had been repeated countless times, I felt as though I were navigating two worlds at once: the stable, predictable realm of domesticity and a newly awakened inner life that beckoned me toward change. Dinner passed in a subdued atmosphere where the conversation remained measured and routine. While Brian shared small anecdotes from his day and recounted familiar plans for tomorrow, my thoughts drifted back to that evening by the river, to the gentle certainty of a connection that had promised renewal. I began to wonder if the routines that once defined me were slowly transforming into boundaries. Boundaries that confined the vibrant parts of my spirit I had only just begun to rediscover. Later, as I lay in bed listening to the soft rhythm of Brian's steady breathing, the contrast between the comfort of our shared past and the urgent call of my own internal landscape grew ever more apparent. In the quiet hours before sleep, I wrestled with the reality of my dual existence, the safe, predictable life I had built, and the whispered promise of a future that dared to be different. In that delicate balance between obligation and aspiration, I realized that the journey toward embracing my true self was only just beginning, even as I returned to the familiar domestic cadence of my everyday life. In the quiet hours of another early morning, as I sat by the window with a half finished cup of coffee, the weight of my choices pressed down on me like an unseen burden. The familiar hum of the neighborhood barely reached my ears as I drifted into a state of introspection. I realized with painful clarity that the betrayal I had committed was not directed solely at Brian, whose steadfast presence had been the backbone of our shared life. It was a betrayal of myself. For years, I had surrendered my dreams and passions in exchange for a life marked by routine and certainty. Now, the reflection in the quiet glass told the story of a woman who had lost touch with her inner truth, sacrificing her own desires for the sake of stability. The internal struggle that had been simmering beneath the surface now exploded into a torrent of emotions. Guilt and regret intermingled with a profound sense of loss. A mourning not just for what was, but for what could have been. I recalled the gentle yet transformative encounters with Logan, which had awakened a dormant part of my soul, urging me to remember who I once was. In that awakening, however, lay the painful realization that the new path I now yearned for meant shattering the comfortable illusions I had built around my life. It was a reckoning that forced me to confront the quiet compromises of the past and to acknowledge the parts of me that had been left behind. I began to examine the choices I had made with an honesty that was both liberating and unsettling. Each decision, each moment of acquiescence to a life of predictability, was now seen in a different light. A series of small betrayals against the promise of my true self. The burden of these revelations was heavy, yet it also ignited a spark of determination. I understood that to find my way back to the person I had once been, I needed to let go of the security that had held me captive. The comfort of routine, as safe as it might be, was a cage that obscured the vibrancy of a life unfulfilled. As the day unfolded, I took tentative steps towards self-discovery. I ventured out into the city, seeking solace in places where creativity and spontaneity flourished. A quiet park with blooming wildflowers, an independent bookstore where stories leapt off the shelves, and a small, unassuming cafe that buzzed with the energy of uncharted ideas. In each of these moments, I found fragments of a forgotten self, piecing together the mosaic of dreams that had been overshadowed by years of compromise. The journey was not without its moments of anguish and doubt. The clarity I sought often came with the sting of realization. Yet, with every encounter, every new experience, I gathered strength and a renewed conviction that my path lay not in the familiar patterns of yesterday, but in the courageous embrace of an uncertain future. In the solitude of my reflections, I made a silent vow to honor the rediscovered fragments of my identity. I would no longer allow the fear of change to dictate my choices, nor would I remain imprisoned by the past. The process of self-forgiveness began as I recognized that the betrayal I once felt was, in truth, an act of survival. A desperate attempt to recapture a life that had slipped away. The journey ahead promised challenges and moments of quiet despair, but it also offered the possibility of a rebirth. A chance to weave together the threads of forgotten dreams into a new tapestry of purpose and authenticity. As the day melted into the hues of a fading sunset, I found myself once again drawn to that familiar park by the river, a place where the past whispered through the rustling of leaves and the gentle flow of water. Today, however, the park felt different, charged with the gravity of a final farewell. I knew that this meeting with Logan would be the turning point, the moment when I would decisively leave behind the fragments of a life that no longer served me. Logan arrived quietly, his presence almost blending with the golden light that bathed the surroundings. His expression was soft, reflective, a mirror to the many unspoken words we had exchanged over the past days. Without the formalities of a structured meeting, we began to talk as if we were both saying goodbye to an era of comfortable yet stifling routine. The conversation was not heavy with regret or sorrow, but imbued with a sincere understanding that some chapters must close for new ones to begin. We strolled slowly along the riverbank, our footsteps in sync with the rhythmic murmur of the water. Each step carried the weight of memories, the days filled with quiet routine, the unexpected calls that rekindled lost dreams, and the fleeting moments of clarity that had illuminated the path toward change. As the sky deepened into shades of crimson and amber, I felt the past gently receding like the tide. In its place, there was the stirring promise of uncharted possibilities, a future where I could reclaim the self I had so long neglected. Logan's eyes, reflecting the glow of the sunset, held a mixture of bittersweet farewell and unyielding hope. He spoke softly about the beauty of impermanence and the necessity of change, emphasizing that even the most cherished memories must sometimes give way to new beginnings. His words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply within me. I realized that my journey was not a betrayal of what once was, but a courageous step toward rediscovering the authenticity that had been quietly calling me forward. As we paused at a small overlook where the city's silhouette merged with the expansive sky, I took a deep breath, accepting the inevitability of this farewell. In that still moment, with the last rays of sunlight dancing on the horizon, I let go of the comforting shadows of my past. There was no dramatic rupture, no harsh words, only a gentle, mutual understanding that we were both ready to embark on new journeys. With a final, lingering look, we embraced the farewell as a promise, that every ending holds within it the seed of a new beginning. As I walked away from the riverbank, leaving behind the fading warmth of the sunset and the echoes of what had been, I stepped boldly into the unknown. The future, uncertain and uncharted, beckoned with a quiet allure, a call to live fully, to dream again, and to honor the truth of who I was meant to become. In the soft glow of an early morning that promised renewal, I stepped forward into a life no longer defined solely by the comforts of routine. The days ahead stretched out before me like an unwritten manuscript, each blank page inviting the careful imprint of my rediscovered self. I woke with a sense of anticipation that had long been foreign, a gentle reminder that every sunrise held within it the possibility of transformation. The familiar quiet of the suburban neighborhood was now tinged with an invigorating energy, as if the air itself had shifted to celebrate my new beginning. Walking down the tree-lined streets, I felt an inner calm that belied the tumultuous journey behind me. The memories of countless days spent in unreflective monotony slowly receded, replaced by a cautious optimism that sparked with every step I took. I recalled the gentle moments of introspection, the heartfelt conversations with Logan, and even the silent struggles in the quiet hours of the night that had led me here. Each recollection was like a brushstroke on the canvas of my life, contributing to a larger, more vivid picture of who I was becoming. Now, the path ahead beckoned with both uncertainty and promise. I began to embrace the idea that growth often comes from leaving behind what is safe and known, venturing instead into the vast landscape of self-discovery. With each step, I acknowledged the bittersweet weight of the past, the memories of a life once shared with Brian, and the tender moments of regret for the time lost. Yet, I also recognized that these experiences were not mere burdens, but the very foundation upon which I could rebuild a more authentic existence. As the morning matured into a bright new day, I paused at a small park bench, letting the warmth of the sun seep into my bones. In that quiet pause, I made a silent vow to honor every part of myself, the woman who once was, the dreams that had been shelved, and the hopeful spirit that now stirred. I resolved to weave these fragments into a life that was true to my innermost desires, a life where passion for simple pleasures, personal growth, and genuine connection would guide me forward. In that reflective moment, I realized that the journey toward self-reclamation was not a single dramatic leap, but rather a series of gentle, deliberate steps. I looked ahead, not with the trepidation of one leaving behind a familiar chapter, but with the eager expectation of a writer ready to author her next great narrative. The new dawn was here, and I was prepared to embrace it, knowing that every sunrise carried the promise of a fresh start and the courage to live fully, unapologetically, and with heartfelt authenticity.